Hello and welcome everyone to Ruslan's Bortnik YouTube channel. My name is James Talberg and I'm excited to announce today our special guest. My guest today is Istvan Gyarmati, a professor, former Hungarian diplomat and international security expert who has been at the heart of the European security for decades. And we're going to tackle the critical questions facing Ukraine, a divide in Europe, and Hungary's controversial role within it. Professor, it's a pleasure to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, good morning, good evening, or whatever. Morning, good
For
day.
me, it's a good morning, but I guess in the European time, it's a good evening.
Okay, whatever.
Whatever that is, exactly. Whatever time
The
you guys are
important,
watching
the,
us
the
as well.
important, important thing is that it has to be good.
Exactly, that's correct. Um, I want to start a conversation with the European security because that's a point of expertise of yours. What do you think in regards when you see that Russian drones are being sent or falling or attacking Poland and just in general being in the airspace of the NATO countries? And what is your perspective towards how the European Union and how NATO countries are responding? And how do you think they should have responded when you see these actions or acts are taking in the European Union and uh, in the NATO zone, if we can call it that way?
I think Europe is facing several challenges in the area of security. First, it's the end of the uh, uh, Cold War era and the post-Cold War era, which has been relatively stable in terms of security, in European security. Of course, in during the Cold War, it was a dangerous stability, but deterrence worked. So we've had decades of almost unchallenged stability in Europe. There were only a few days where this situation was challenged, the Berlin crisis, it's a Cuban crisis. Then came the probably the best period of security for Europe, for the world between 1991, the fall of the Soviet Union, and the uh, increased aggressive imperialistic policy of Russia. I would date it to 2014 when it became very visible, but it started before that. Parallel to this, we are also witnessing a radical change in the world security order. The Westphalian order is going to an end, and we are entering a new era, a new security order, which we don't know what it is, what it will be. So we are in the transition, uh, and that new era is marked by the appearance of very strong, important non-state actors, including terrorists, some others too, but terrorists are the most important. And we see that wars of today are not only between states, but also between states and terrorist organizations. Look at the Middle Eastern situation. And then we have a revolution in warfare with the appearance of drones and other unmanned vehicles, and now even more with artificial intelligence. So it is almost impossible to deal with so many challenges at the same time. It might be impossible, but it has to be done, nevertheless, because we have to respond. And I think the European response has been late, too little, too late. Now we are catching up. 2007, Putin gave a speech at the Munich Security Conference where he basically outlined his policy of the future, which was that he wants to restore Soviet zones of influence for Russia, including in Central and Eastern Europe, not to mention the former Soviet Union. Apart from the Baltic countries, he was graciously allowing the Baltic countries to stay outside. 2008, he invaded Georgia. For the Munich security speech, there was no reaction whatsoever to the invasion of Georgia, there was a European reaction, a wrong reaction. Actually, it was basically an appeasement reaction. The Europeans went as far as blaming the Georgians for the Russian invasions. Unheard of that a huge country, invades another one, and then the small victim is blamed for the invasion. And then came, of course, it made Russia, Putin personally, very confident, and then came the Crimea. The Crimea, we could have prevented the occupation of Crimea. There was approximately a day where our reaction could have been different from doing nothing, which was basically what we've done. I mean, we meaning Europeans and Americans included. There was approximately a day where we could have reacted to the little green man and most probably prevented the occupation of the Crimea by the Russians at that point, but we missed it. So Putin got the Crimea. Almost immediately afterwards, he started his hybrid warfare against the eastern Ukraine, and we see it started with the People's Republics of Donetsk and Lugansk in Russian. And we did not respond. What we did was also a kind of an appeasement. The Minsk Accords have a lot of things to get common with the Munich Accords. Not only that both cities start with an M. Both of them were an appeasement of Hitler. And this case Putin, and of course it didn't work. As it didn't work with Hitler, it didn't work with Putin, and then he gradually became convinced that he can get Ukraine, not only the two counties of Donetsk and Luhansk. So he decided to invade in 2022. He basically also announced it a few weeks earlier by presenting two draft treaties. One of them basically was meant to declare that Ukraine belongs to Russia. The second one that Central and Eastern Europe has to return to the pre-NATO membership of these countries and de facto, consequently, logically become a Russian sphere of influence. And when that was rejected by NATO, by everybody actually in Europe, he started the war in Ukraine. And we have to say that that European and American response has been lukewarm, slow, too little, too late. It was too late. In the first 4 years, very little was done. Then the Biden administration started to provide more serious support for Ukraine in terms of weapons deliveries, but they always kept the weapons deliveries within limits that was enough not to allow the Russians to overcome Ukrainians, but it was never enough for the Ukrainians to seriously counter Russian offensives. So that's where we are today. And then came Donald Trump, who basically made a big mess of everything, including the American policy towards Ukraine. He thought that he could get Putin to make concessions because of their extremely good relation, he thought.
Personal relationship, yeah.
Sorry?
I
Sorry?
said, yeah, that you're correct. He assumed that he
Yeah.
can get him to do some contract because of his personal relationship with him.
Yes, but personal relationships never override interests. So he didn't understand that for a long while. And then I have said many times for a long time that our best ally getting Donald Trump on board is Vladimir Putin, because he will push it so far that that Trump will have no choice, and that's where we are now. Donald Trump has no choice but support Ukraine seriously. It's a strange support, if I'd be American, I would question my president that how come that you declare that countering Russia in Ukraine and defending Ukraine is American national interest, and then you do it on a commercial basis, so you are selling at basically American national interests. But be it as it is, it's still better than nothing. And now we see what will Trump do in terms of somehow influencing the war in Ukraine. Of course, in the next days he will enjoy the success in Gaza, so he will do nothing. But at some point he will return, and we will see what he will be able and ready to do. The good thing is that the Europeans woke up. The Europeans have enjoyed peace dividends for decades, and that's haunting us now. Fortunately, Donald Trump has been serious enough, aggressive enough to push the European NATO countries to accept this 3.5 plus 1.5% defense budget. The question is, of course, now what do we spend it for? And that's in the making, and that has woken up the Europeans. Surprisingly for me, the Europeans got together better, faster, stronger than I expected. This coalition of the willing and all the consequences of it have been, I think, very seriously shaking up Europe. And now we see that NATO is preparing. NATO is preparing in terms of military. The first test has been quite successful. I was very pleasantly surprised that when the drones appeared in Polish airspace, then within 5 minutes, Italian F-35s have appeared there, and they wouldn't wait for what you would expect NATO committees to go into session and spend hours and days discussion. There was no need for political decision. The current previous political decisions proved to be enough, and that's how NATO should work. So that's, I think, very encouraging. We will see the further steps. And the European Union is also waking up. It's providing money for the member states and also for NATO to spend for weapons, to buy weapons from America for Ukraine and also for their own purposes. The European Union is taking loans, which is a second time in the history of the European Union that the European Union is taking loans together for some common purpose, which is a revolutionary. It will have serious consequences serious positive consequences on the further integration of the European Union apart from Ukraine. So that's, I think, very positive, and we will see what happens. What Europe needs, and I that's my last point. What Europe needs to figure out very, very quickly is to avoid the usual institutional fighting. There is no time and no need to fight between NATO and the European Union who will do that, who will do what. There is a danger. The European Union might want to show that it is an important player, as important as NATO. We have to say whatever we think. It is not. We are talking about military issues, and there NATO is the leader, has to be the leader. European Union can and should provide support, but the leadership must remain with with NATO.
There's something that I think I personally need clarification on, and perhaps maybe people that are viewing us as well, because I'll try to portray that picture from all the perspective. I'm personally a big fan of Europe, European countries, European culture. I think it's a gem in the world that needs to be preserved. Um, However, the situation that we're witnessing now in the world is that we're getting into challenging times, as you've mentioned. And from all the powerhouses, the United States, Russia, China, maybe even India, European Union, despite all its capabilities, looking like they are at the worst shape. They cannot produce their own weapons. They have to buy from the United States. They're not ready for Russian aggression or any other military activity on the European. And it seems like from the main players like China, United States, European Union, like despite the fact that it's as big as financially strong, they seem to have less cards because, as you mentioned, they're not reacting as fast as they should have and as enough as they should. Am I correct in that perspective, or maybe it's a little bit far from the situation that is happening in the European Union? Because you did mention that in 5 minutes the Italian fighter jet showed up and helped to drop down to strike back the Russian drones, and maybe they are working on reducing that division inside the European Union, and they do have a strategy, an exit strategy, and they do have a plan how to deal with all the upcoming financial and military challenges. Because if they're not, then as you mentioned as well, they will continue playing that institutional game: who's right, who's first, who's next. They will lose that game because they're not coming as a united front. Does that make any sense? Like in 2022, when Russia just invaded Ukraine, there was a crazy unity inside NATO, inside European Union, and now we're seeing again that game back and forth. Who's on what side, whose interest should be first, and so on and so forth. I personally just really want Europe to succeed. And so far, from the articles, the experts, all the information that is coming out of there, it's portrayed in not a very successful, not a very progressive way. Or maybe that's just the information that I'm personally getting. And European Union and NATO, they're doing amazing, and they're expecting the challenges, and they're planning how to overcome the challenges, and so on and so forth. Because if they're not, they might end up in the situation where they're being attacked or financially destroyed, and they're just like slowly sinking like Titanic.
Well, you are right and you are not. I'm not into blame game. We can blame the Europeans for many things in the past, and we would be right if we would do this. We can blame the United States for many things in the recent past, the past weeks, because Donald Trump made a lot of damage to NATO. For instance, by questioning if the United States would stand up against a Russian attack in Lithuania. You remember that Lithuania is not paying the dues, so we will not defend it. So what's wrong? What's worse? So I think let's forget the blame game. What is the European Union doing or Europeans doing now? The Leopard tanks are as good as the M1. The Gideon fighting vehicles are as good as the Humvee. The Rheinmetall cannons are as good as the Americans. The Gripen and the European fighter, the sixth generation aircraft that they are working at, just as the Americans. The Americans don't have sixth generation aircraft, so the Europeans don't have them too. But the Europeans will have them basically the same time as the Americans. So yes, the Europeans missed a lot of things in the past decades, but they are waking up, and there is a very serious European arms industry in the making, and not in the making 10 years from now or 5 years from now, not even next year, but to this year. Rheinmetall is becoming a competitor of Americans companies. Uh, I'm just waiting to see when Donald Trump will start criticizing the Europeans that they are too strong a competition to American weapons, and they should buy American weapons instead. So the perspective is very good. The only problem, only in quotation marks, is time, that we need to be ready. But uh, let me quote Donald Tusk. Donald Tusk said that it is Donald Tusk, don't forget, Donald Tusk is the Prime Minister of Poland, which is becoming probably the second or third most important military power in Europe. Is already the only country which already spends 5% before Donald Trump demanded it. The country that entered the G20 with 1 trillion euros of dollars of GDP, the country that has a stronger military than I would say almost everybody. I mean, in terms of current capabilities, the strongest after the Americans, together with the Turks, I would say. Hopefully, the Germans and the French and the Brits will catch up, but the Brits and the French will never have that big an army that the Poles do, and the Germans should. So um, so the picture is not nice, but the picture is much better than what most people think. And we Europeans are kind of idiots that we always present our own capabilities much worse than what they are. Um, Donald Tusk said that it is strange that 350 million people, European Americans, are asked to defend 500 million people, Europeans, against 180 million Russians. So the Europeans should do it alone, and they are getting closer to it. And I tell you that it will happen. I'm working with a small group of experts on a study that is looking into what American capabilities could be replaced and how in the European theater. We are coming to the conclusion, and that Donald Trump will love it, that we don't need that many American boots on the ground. We need Americans in the Baltic countries, in Poland. We don't need Americans in Germany. What we need is American software, American tactical nuclear weapons, and American intelligence. The rest can be replaced already now by European capabilities. So if we continue on the path that we are on, in a year or two, I think Europe will be able to defend itself with reduced American help against any Russian attack. The second point I want to make is that you can say a lot of things about Vladimir Putin. One thing you should not. You cannot say he is stupid. Also, you cannot say that he has suicidal thoughts. So Vladimir Putin will not attack NATO frontally, because the Russian army, which is stuck in the Ukrainian quagmire for 3 years now, how come? How can you imagine that they could fight against the entire
I
NATO? You can.
100% agree with you. So what do you think he can do instead? Because the stakes of a war between NATO and Russia, they're growing. What kind of hybrid plan he can come up with to cause a crisis without involving a
Yes.
frontal? Yeah.
There are two things that we need to be prepared for. Actually, we need to prepare for the big war in order to avoid it. If you want to keep peace, you have to prepare for war. So we need to continue the creation of a European defense autonomy, together, not separate, but together with the Americans, with less American involvement, but still very important. European American integration has to be strengthened, not weakened by it. But what we need to be prepared for at this point are two things. One is this hybrid thing, these drones, these provocations, the propaganda war, internal um, rebellion, support of pro-Russian groups wherever it's possible, creation and support of pro-Russian groups, uh, critical infrastructure, attacks on critical infrastructure by drones, not from Russia, but from a few kilometers from their venue, including, I would say, airports. So the Russians can do a lot of things that can make our life more difficult, and it's extremely problematic to defend. It's not a military issue. It's a military, police, economic, propaganda, whatever. The second one is a war by mistake. Uh, if if NATO is not strong enough, if the Russians are not convinced that NATO would, as Donald Trump said, defend the last square centimeter of NATO territory, if they are not convinced of that, because of Donald Trump's earlier statements, because of many other things that the Spaniards are not ready to live up to their commitments, that, and I could continue, unfortunately, on and on, not too much and less and less. So, but still, then they might try. They might try to get the Suwalki corridor. That's a dream. Corridors are usually dangerous. We remember the last corridor was extremely problematic. So they could try that, or they could try Narva. Russians have dreamed about getting Narva for Saint Peter the Great. So, or Transnistria, Moldova through Transnistria. If they do that, they can take it. There is no question they can take Narva within 2 hours. But what happens then? No, if they are not convinced, if NATO is not ready, immediately respond by military force and retake Narva, whatever it costs. But we'll again sink back into these old habits of discussing in Brussels for days. But the Spaniards will do well. Do we risk a world war for 200 square kilometers? That's not worth really it. So if this is the reaction, then it will be the end of NATO, and that will encourage Russians to prepare for a bigger war. So we have to prepare to deter, and if not, and if we don't succeed, to fight against this little small Russian incursions that might happen, not today, not tomorrow, but I would say 2026 or 2027. I see that, especially if the Ukrainian war is ending. So I say these are the two challenges that we have to face now, today, not tomorrow, today. The big war is we have to prepare for the big war, because deterrence only works if we have the capability and if we are credible.
How do you think the war between Ukraine and Russia will end? What's your expectation in regards to that direction?
Let me take a step back. I hope I'm not too long. Let me take a step back. What is going on in Ukraine? Of course, on the surface, the most important aspect of that war is Russian imperialism. I don't need to dwell on this. That's very clear. It's the centuries long since Peter the Great, the dream of the Russians to create the Russian word, Ruski Mir. It's not beginning with Dugin or with Putin. It's beginning with Peter the Great. Let me just ask you a question, if I may. What was the title of the Russian monarch? Do you know? What was the official
idea.
title? It was
it's Tsar. Tsar.
Tsar. Continue.
That's all I remember.
No, the Tsar of all. That's the Tsar of all Russians. Not the Tsar of Russia, but the Tsar of all Russians. And Putin wants to be the Tsar of all Russians. But underneath that, excuse me.
Yeah.
Underneath that, it is a fight of the Ukrainians to finish their nation building. The Ukrainian nation has not existed before the Russian invasion. Vladimir Putin helped to finish the nation building of Ukrainian nation. There is a Ukrainian nation today. There was none in 2010. And nation building is always connected to the fight of determining what territory of that new nation will control. And now what's going on in Ukraine underneath the surface of what I have mentioned, which is the most important, of course, is that we see a process of determining what will be the territory of the state, of the nation state that the Ukrainian nation will control. And I think that will finish the Ukrainian nation building. And it will most probably not be, it happened everywhere. It happened in all European countries. So Germany, don't forget Germany. The German nation has been only kind of finalized, and the territory where the German nation lives has been already only finalized in World War II. So it's a long process. I think what does not belong to will not belong to the Ukrainian nation state is for sure Luhansk, Donetsk, and Crimea, because they are not integral part of a Ukrainian nation state. The remaining two will be a question. It's the remaining two. Russia has nothing to do with the remaining two. Russia has nothing to seek in the remaining two countries. So it will be a pure war, peace negotiation that will determine the border of the Ukrainian nation state and Russia in those two territories. By the way, Russia is not a nation state either, so Russia is an imperium and it will fall apart after this war, not very long time from now, which will be another dangerous event. But so that's what's going on in Ukraine. The war will end with negotiations. Wars can end two ways. Whether one, you defeat the enemy completely, World War II, or you strike an agreement, Korea, and many others. It will be the Korean, I think, solution. There will be a ceasefire. They might call it peace agreement. It won't be a peace agreement. It might be a ceasefire. It will be a ceasefire agreement. We will have to, and that's, I think, the most important thing now today, to force Russia to accept that the time has come, and you only can force Russia by two things: by arming Ukraine and by imposing sanctions on serious economic sanctions on Russia. If we can do that, and Donald Trump plays a key role in this, Europeans are doing what they can, I think, and at last. But without the Americans, it cannot be done. It's a dangerous step. It's a step that will cost a lot, also for us, and for the Americans, but especially the Europeans. But it has to be done, and once it's done, and the ceasefire agreement is in place, then the Ukrainian nation state will be finalized. The Ukrainian nation will be finalized, and we as European Union, hopefully also the United States, we will help the Ukrainian nations to build their state almost from scratch.
There's something that we have discussed before we have started this recording behind the scenes, and I want to bring up that final block as well, the situation that is happening right now in Israel and in Gaza. Do you think that's the end of the war, or that's just another chapter before they're going to get back into fighting?
It's the end of the war in one theater of war. It's not the end of the entire war. I think the best case will be that Gaza will be pacified. I think there is a chance. There is the best chance ever to pacify Gaza and to build something in Gaza that will be how to say, to some extent civilized state, not threatening Israel. But after that, you have to deal with Transjordania, which is now nobody is talking about, but that's a permanent crisis situation, and it will explode if we don't do something. You have to deal with Israel proper, because there are millions of Arabs who live in Israel. What is their future? How do you keep the Jewish state with millions of Arabs in Israel? So Israel will have to respond to this. And there is Iran. Donald Trump made a big mistake, and God punished him that he did not get the Nobel Peace Prize. Donald Trump made a big mistake by stopping the bombing of the nuclear facilities of Iran. What happened there was not what Donald Trump said. The nuclear capabilities of Iran are not untouched, but close
Do you
to
think that they're preserved?
being operational. Sorry?
You think that
This,
they're being preserved?
yes, we know that there is 440 kilogram of enriched uranium at 60% enriched uranium in the possession of the Iranians, and it only takes buying a few thousand centrifuges to make them up to 90%. And whatever the Iranians say, there is absolutely no other use of enriched uranium other than weapons. Today, we saw something very interesting. I think the Iranians are smart too. They said that they are ready to negotiate, but they are waiting an American proposal. So we'll see what happens. But I really very seriously doubt that the Iranian nuclear capabilities can be negotiated away. I think they have to be destroyed.
What do you think going to be the next crisis in the Middle East if Gaza is not going to be pacified, and unfortunately Iran still has this enriched uranium? How this whole thing gonna play out eventually at the end?
Well, I think I expect a little recess
I'm asking this
in the
cut
Middle
you off.
East.
I'm asking. Everybody's under the expectation that the end of the war is near, and like as of right now, things got figured out. And I'm just a little bit concerned that that's not really the situation there on the ground.
The end of the war in Gaza is near, or could be near, hopefully. I think it's the best chance in the last 100 years for that in Gaza. But that's not the end of the conflict in the Middle East. And I think the ones that I have listed before, especially the Iranian nuclear threat, remains, and it has to be managed and solved at some point, and that's ahead. I think we have, now the world will be happy for a few months, hopefully not more, and
A few months,
Israel.
years.
Yes, I think so. No, but the longer the wait, the more difficult it will be to deal with the Iranian capabilities, nuclear capabilities, because they are building up, building. They will be building up. They want to negotiate to create a cover for their increased efforts. So I think Donald Trump will have to wake up from his dream that he won that war against Iran. Now that he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, he could do that. So hopefully he will get to it, and but it will. The next step is probably to have a new leadership for Israel. I think with this leadership, Israel is doomed to run into serious difficulties. We need another leadership. Netanyahu, as great as he is or he used to be, has to go, being replaced by others. So there are many problems in the Middle East that will not give us a too long a rest.
Professor, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for your insights today. And I think you're bringing clarity and perhaps even some positivity in regards how things will develop. And hopefully the parties that are on the right side of the history will act faster and at the right amount. So we're not running into statements like not fast enough and not equipped enough when it comes to dealing with challenges.
Well, don't spero. Let's hope.
Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, and you too.